In the letter to the Hebrews, the inspired writer sums up the reason that God the Son became human and entered our world. And the reason, as that letter puts it, is so that Jesus could free those who all their lives long were in bondage through fear of death. Today begins Passion Week, thus the veiling of some of our images. And the week after this will be Holy Week. And in these weeks, we follow Jesus as he confronts death, the fear of death that holds us in bondage and feeds much of the destructiveness and sin in our lives. Not everyone is aware of this bondage, this fear. Our culture, with its technology, with its saving medicines, with the new rituals that we have to distance ourselves from the dying and the dead, is good at pretending that we are free from the fear of death. But in our heart of hearts, even with all of these great benefits, we all feel the shadow of death stretch its darkness over us and chill us in our heart of hearts. Many of the rash, destructive, sinful things that we do live out of the fear that we only have a few years, a few hundred days, whatever it is, thousands of days on this earth. And we have to seize as much happiness as we can while we're on this earth. And it's up to us. It's up to us to wrest some sort of joy, some sort of meaning and purpose out of our time here on this planet. You've all heard of the midlife crisis, that realization midway in our lives that we are going to die. And that term midlife crisis connotes all sorts of destructive and selfish decisions. Among younger people, there's a meme or a hashtag, YOLO, you only live once. And it's used to justify all sorts of crazy things. Our fear of death makes us all slaves. It makes us anxious. And it casts a shadow, a chill over even the happiest moments in our lives. Jesus came into our world to free us from that shadow, to free us from that chill. As God, he could have conquered death from a place of invulnerability. He could have conquered death at a distance from the fear, the anxiety, the weakness of our human condition. But instead, out of love, he decided to become subject himself to death, to fear, to sadness. And we see that on vivid display in our gospel this evening. Jesus weeps at the death of his friend Lazarus. With his human heart, He sees the sorrow of Martha and Mary and the mourners and is deeply troubled. Our God is not a God who cannot relate to our grief. Our God, by becoming human, weeps with us, grieves with us, understands from the inside the sadness and the turmoil that comes from being mortal. Though he shares this weakness with us, he calls us out of the shadow of fear, out of the shadow of death, out of the shadow of the tomb itself, to believe in him, to trust in him, and to live no longer as slaves to death, but beloved sons and daughters and friends of his in hope. When we live for ourselves, we live a living death. It is possible to experience an interior death long, long before our bodies give out. And to us, who in selfishness, in crippling despair, have curled up and are lost in darkness, Jesus says, as he said to Lazarus, come out of the darkness, rise, hear my voice and live. Today, that same voice that Martha, Mary, and Lazarus in the tomb heard echoes down the ages to us. The same question that was asked of Martha, do you believe that I am the resurrection and the life, echoes down to us. In those words, we are invited to leave the darkness of fear, the anxiety of missing out, and into a foretaste, even now, of eternal life. What the church celebrates from here through the Triduum to Easter is our deliverance from slavery, our freedom from that bondage, and our exodus from the shadow of the tomb to the light of heaven.